Welcome, my name is Tyler. Our goal for this short video is to highlight the factors that make up a macroeconomically stable country and show that macroeconomic stability leads to a country becoming developed. To do this, we will show examples of a highly developed country, Singapore, an intermediately developed country, Greece, and a underdeveloped or developing country, Kenya. Hope you enjoy. So Hendrik, you specialize in trade. First off, could you tell us what exactly is trade balance, and based on the three countries we're looking at right now, what separates them and what sets Singapore so far above the other two?
Trade balance is exports minus imports. And if you look on the raw data of these three countries, you can see that the more developed these countries are, the more they export and import. Singapore is the only country of these three in our video with a positive trade balance of $73 billion. Both Greece and Kenya have a negative trade balance. Kenya's most recent product is tea to export, and if you compare that to Singapore, where one of the most recent exports is integrated circuits, you can see that the technological sector in Singapore plays a very big role. And one reason why Singapore is so much ahead compared to the other two countries is that Singapore started in the late 1970s to make their climate more favorable for foreign direct investments. And by exporting labor-intensive manufacturers and opening their trade barriers, Singapore created a strategy to raise their trade numbers and through that increasing their economic growth, which leads to economic development. Both Kenya and Greece miss these opportunities.
So oftentimes we see GDP as a measurement of a country's growth, but over the past 30 years, what can GDP tell us about these countries' macroeconomic stability?
GDP is actually a good measure for stability. In Singapore, their government actually nurtures growth through programs like Economic Development Board, which attracts multinational corporations. In Greece, however, their poor fiscal policies in the 80s created inflation, and that inhibited growth. And it was until the 90s where they kind of fixed that problem. And in places like Kenya, their government is a little bit more corrupt, and their inward-looking policies and invading of the private sector kind of screws over the citizens and gives them less incentive to work. And as you can see in the graph above, the GDP for Singapore rose substantially throughout the whole decades, and didn't slow down till Y2K. And in Greece, they started where Singapore did, and their GDP grew slightly, and then eventually matched Singapore for a little bit, and then like after the financial crisis of 2008, it slowed down, and in Kenya's case, there's almost no growth at all.
So you were part of the United Nations Development Program up until 2013. I was wondering if you could elaborate on what the Human Development Index actually tells us about these countries' macroeconomic stability in regards to their development.
Well, the Human Development Index helps quantify the essential determinants of human development. So it helps quantify to live a long, healthy life, also acquire knowledge, and have access to resources needed for a decent standard of living. So it's very important for the stability of their lives to have a higher index number. So the ranking of the countries, Kenya to Greece and Singapore, is 147th to 29th to number 9. So first we'll look at Kenya. Kenya has like a big problem of productivity because of the massive amounts of diseases such as malaria or TB or HIV and AIDS, which hinders its development. In Greece, in terms of for resources, its main industry is tourism, so it puts it as not having a big advance in technologies or productivity. And Singapore is more of a success because of its advancements in the healthcare system. So it's really increased their index because of the universal health care created by the government to help increase the productivity of its workers. We see a big increase from 1980 to 2013, and it's helped create a decent standard of living. And the other lower developing countries would help to increase their number by taking note from Singapore.
FDI is an investment in a business from an investor of a foreign country, which he'll be known as a foreign investor. He will own 10% or more in the entity and have controlling power over the entity. So businesses which usually engage in these types of investments are known as multinational corporations or multinational enterprises. What happens is that when the foreign investor goes to the foreign country, they build or they pay taxes, they buy resources, they employ new people, and they also create new jobs because the people in the foreign country will now have more money in their pockets, so they'll want to spend more. So you'll have people wanting to create businesses to fulfill that demand for wants. Greece has a very unstable economy. It is very risky. Investors would not want to invest in their country because the banks are closing. They don't allow withdrawals or more than one withdrawal per day. So an investor would not want to go to Greece. Kenya does not have their property rights clear. An investor is not going to want to go there because when they set up the policies in that country might not be in favor for them, so it'll pull them out of business. So in Singapore has a very stable economy. They're very tech savvy. The government provides tax incentives for them, or it did. They've gone towards creating new industries at the time that they were developing, so they were very open. And that's how they got to the point where now they're one of the leading countries in FDIs.
So in short, we could see that all the factors we've just gone over, including GDP, HDI, FDIs, and trade balance, are all important factors in determining a country's macroeconomic stability, and also that the more stable a country, the more easy it is for that country to develop. Hope you enjoyed.